as the Mechilta reads in Parshas Boy as follows, on the Pasuk where it says in Parshas Boy, Kapitel Yud Beis, Pasuk Mem Beis, that's chapter 12, verse 42, the Pasuk reads as follows, Leil Shimurim Hu La Hashem Lo Yitziam Eretz Mitzrayim, etc. It concludes, Shimurim L'chol B'nei Yisrael L'deiroisam. And we discussed yesterday the plain translation, Leil Shimurim, it's the night of keeping. Hashem keeps this night and anticipates to redeem from the time of the redemption of Egypt, to redeem the Eden from the Golus, etc. As the Chazal say, according to Rabbi Yehoshua, Masechta Rosh Hashanah, Shemurim l'chol b'nei Yisrael l'deroisam. So Rashi says, what the Gemara says in Masechta Rosh Hashanah. Let's just now go directly to the Mechilta. The Mechilta, and that's what we're focusing on. The Mechilta says, Shemurim l'chol b'nei Yisrael. Magid, this comes to teach us, Shekol Yisrael tzrichin lehishtamer boy, that all of Yidden have to be mishtamer boy, and that means plainly to be watched in this night. That means the night of Pesach, the night of the 14th night leading to the 15th. So that night, the Leil Pesach, where the Torah calls it Shimurim l'chol b'nei Yisrael l'deroisam, for generations, it's a night of Shmira. So even though we brought different definitions to that, and that was Shimurim, like it means that Hashem is guarding us. That's the plain shot, the way we understood it from the Shas, from the Gemara, in Mesichta Rosh Hashanah, and also in Mesichta Pesachim Daf Kuftes Amud Beis. We mentioned this yesterday, and Rashi records it. Rashi says so on the Chumash, on the spot. The Mechilta has his take, its take, and that is, this teaches us, and as mentioned yesterday, because the Mechilta used the wording of Magid, this teaches us, meaning this comes to convey a message which possibly we wouldn't have seen or understood otherwise. So this extra expression, because it's a twofold expression, we said, it seems to be repetitious. The first part speaks about the Leil Shemurim, it says it again, as the Meforshim explained in the Shas. So the Mechilta says, you know why it says Shemurim l'chol b'nei Yisrael? Because Kol Yisrael tzrichim lehishtamer boy. So plainly it would mean that Yidden have to protect themselves this night, and therefore not in vain. We're going to mention this quickly, the different Pirushim. Immediately the Magen Avraham in his commentary, Zayis Ranon, says Haloshon megumgum. The Loshon is not clear, because it would seem that the Yidden have to protect themselves. We know that it's a night that Hashem protects us. He guards us. Nevertheless, it says that we have to protect ourselves. Therefore, he says his different Pirushim, and he says we have to say it means Hashem guards us. And we mentioned the extreme text, which is found nowhere except for a Sefer Aderes Eliyahu from Rab Eliyahu Hatzarfati, takes us back to Morocco hundreds of years ago, where he records this Mechilta. He doesn't address it. He addresses the first section of it. But this statement, he Dafka has recorded, Magid Shekol Yisrael ein tzrichin lehishtamer boy. Don't have to protect themselves. Well, that flows very well, no problem. But there's no such text anywhere. So either it was the printer put in the ein, or he put in the ein, but he doesn't address it, and he doesn't even make mention of it. So I don't know where that's coming from, but nevertheless, that's the way it's recorded in his Sefer. But because in all the Mechiltas it says, Magid Shekol Yisrael tzrichin lehishtamer boy, you have to protect yourself. So therefore, the Nachlas Yaakov on Pirush Rashi, known Gadol B'Yisrael from Poland hundreds of years ago, also says that this actual Mechilta is against the Gemara. It's lehepech from the Gemara, because the Gemara says Hashem guards us, and here it says you have to protect yourself. In the Sefer Shvus Yehuda we mentioned on the Mechilta from Rabbi Yehuda Najjar, and also recorded in the referenced in the Sefer Pesach Advir in Shulchan Aruch and Siman Tov Pei Zayin in Hilchos Pesach. He says that look, the night of Pesach, we see that there was the mashchis. That means Yidden had to protect themselves by staying indoors, but if you come outdoors, you're not protected. That's what we read in the Chumash in Parshas Boy. So he says the same applies for the night of Pesach. Basically, according to the Pesach Advir, it means as follows. The Gemara says you're protected when you remain indoors. And here it says you have to protect yourself, meaning don't go outdoors. And as we mentioned yesterday, it's not a joke. You follow the rules and the instructions from the government, and that is stay indoors. And then you'll be protected. HaKadosh Baruch Hu should protect us. If you go outdoors, you're looking for trouble. Okay, so I'll call upon him. And others want to say, no, There's a text in the Yalkut published with a commentary called Bris Avram, which is a special edition. And there text reads, which is also an unusual text. Shekol Yisrael asidin lehishtamer boy. That text flows wonderfully. That means eventually Hashem will protect them. But Shricha lehishtamer boy is problematic. Okay, b'chol, we're going to the Rogatchover Gaon. The Rogatchover Gaon has the text as it says in most mechiltis, in all mechiltis, Magid Shekol Yisrael Shricha lehishtamer boy. And therefore, the Rogatchover, as mentioned yesterday, as we've seen and we've shared many shiurim together, where we see that the Rogatchover generally doesn't quote any of these Meforshim. I don't know if you saw them. I don't know if you looked for them or looked into them. Whatever the case is, it's definitely problematic as we see it at face value. And therefore, he tackles it. And he tackles it, in other words, he analyzes it and explains it, dafka in his unique and novel way, with his halachic spectacles, with his depth, with the depth and the breadth of his knowledge, etc. And he doesn't make things up. It's all substantiated on the Shas. And he sees that the Mechilta tells us this message based on what it says, Shimurim lechol b'nei Yisrael. And therefore it says, Shrichen lehishtamer bo. So he goes into a lengthy analysis in halacha based on the Shas. What is the definition of Shmira? He's not a Malbim. He's not saying droshes or pulpulim, teaching us Hebrew grammar. He's giving us the halachic definition of the term Vishamru of the psukim, where it says Vishamru or it says Ushmartem and the like. And yesterday I started off by introducing what the Meshech Chochmah Rabbi Meir Simcha of Dvinsk, a colleague of the Rogatchover, one of the greats of Dvinsk, the two greats, and he was the Ashkenazi Rav. We mention him frequently in the spirit from the Spirit Shor Sameach and also in the Spirit Meshech Chochmah. And in Parshas Boy, on the Pasuk Ushmartem Esamatzos in Kapitel Yud Beis, Pasuk Yud Zayin, he brings to our attention that we find by Pesach, and I'll read for you the different psukim. Here again, different psukim he records for us, where we find the lashon of Ushmartem by Pesach and the lashon of Ushmartem by Shabbos. I'll read the psukim for you quickly. It says, Ushmartem esamatzos, so we see that's a pasuk in Kapitel Yud Beis Yud Zayin. Then it says, Ushmartem es ha'avoda hazois. It says, Ushmartem es ha'davar hazeh. That's all in Parshas Boy. Then in Parshas Mishpatim it says, Chag ha'matzos tishmar. Then in Parshas Kisisa and in Parshas Re'eh it says, Shamar chodesh ha'aviv. Right? So again, the lashon Shamar. So then he goes on to tell us the same applies by Shabbos. We find the lashon of Shamar by Shabbos. By Shabbos we find he goes on to bring different psukim. He says it's a Shmira, Shamar es Yom HaShabbos. And it says in Parshas Kitisa 3 times, Shmira by Shabbos, right? V'shamru b'nei Yisrael as Shabbos is the known. V'shamru, which all Klal Yisrael say V'shamru when they yell it out. Dafke the Chabadniks, not Chabadniks. Those who daven Nusach Hari and the Alter Rebbe Siddur, we don't say V'shamru. And therefore, if someone wants to get under Alabavich's skin, he'll really say V'shamru out loud and yell, shout it out. As I remember as a child, in my Nusach Hari shul, we allowed the people to say V'shamru, but the Baal Tefillah didn't say V'shamru. And the fellow next to the Rav made sure to yell V'shamru so loud that the Rav was intimidated. But the Lubavitch didn't say V'shamru because the Alter Rebbe says not to say it. So we don't say V'shamru. Let's not go there. But everybody knows the gewaltige clip of the Minchas Elazar. Remember that clip by his daughter's wedding? He says, Yidden in America, heat Shabbos. So the Shabbos are heaten. Right? That's heaten. That's heaten the Shabbos. The Shabbos are heaten. That's the way he said it. You remember that clip? Gewaltige clip. The Munkacher Rav, the Minchas Elazar, who didn't see eye to eye with the Zionism, and that's fine with us. I'm sorry, what's his name? There's someone listening. I'm not going to mention him by name. Who wasn't Dafka excited now that I mentioned the Minchas Elazar, but it's okay. And we're moving on. So we're moving on. So the Rabbi Meir Simcha says, yes, in Parshas Kisisa, it says 3 times Shmira on Shabbos. It says in Parshas Bahar and Kedoshim, Parshas Bahar and Parshas Kedoshim, it says Ashab Soisi Tishmeru. And he says, being that we find that the language of Shmira is found by Shabbos, just like it's found by Pesach, that's why we call Pesach Mimochras HaShabbos, right? It says that you start counting the Sfira. Mimochras HaShabbos. The Chazal tell us it's not Shabbos. It means Pesach. Nevertheless, we describe the Pesach here as Shabbos. So he goes on to tell us as follows. He says, interestingly, this is the premise that Rabbi Simcha says. We know very well that the shomer on the Shabbos, right? Shomer is the loises. Throughout the Shas, the Gemara says, Zocher v'shomer v'diburecha. The Gemara tells us that the shomer, Zocher is the positive, and the shomer is the negative. That's why in the Aseret Adibris, in one it says in Parshas Yisro is Zocher, in Parshas Vayeschan is the shomer. The Gemara says that the shomer is, like the Gemara says, is shomer pen va'al eina ela loises. That's the Lashon Hishomer. So it's a loises. Tell it to Kodesh Baruch Hu says, keep the Shabbos, right? Shomer is Yom Shabbos Lakachi. Don't desecrate the Shabbos. So it's referring to the negatives. So the Rabbi Simcha tells us that that's why we find. The reason we find this in itself, that we find by Shabbos so many shomers, is because it so happens to be that even the positives are influenced by the negatives. And he says an interesting thing, therefore it's reflected in the mitzvahs of the day that even the women are chayiv only in mitzvahs loisas shahazman groma, but they are exempt in mitzvahs asay shahazman groma. Nevertheless, we say that they're chayiv in all the zachars like they're chayiv in the shomer. Why? Because the Zocher is Shomer. So the Shomer influences the Zocher, just like they're Chayiv in the Shomer, they're Chayiv in the Zocher. So that's what he says the Shabbos is all about the Loises, about the Shomer. That's what we find the Lashon Shmira throughout by Shabbos, because that's that's the highlight of Shabbos. It influences even the Zocher. That's why Shabbos is big on the Shomer. The same goes with the Pesach. He says that's why Pesach we find throughout the language of Shomer. Why? Because, and it's reflected also that we find in Pesach, that women are chayiv in all the negatives and all the prohibitions of Pesach. Even though there's man groma, but the chayiv, even though there's man groma, because the lav in their chayiv, nevertheless, in the esses, they should be exempt, nevertheless, in all the essin of Pesach and the essen, there you go, essen, essach, right? In achilas matzah, they're chayiv. The Gemara says, because whoever is a chayiv, bebal teichel chametz is chayiv in kum achel matzah. Because we equate the achilas matzah to the achilas chametz, to not eating chametz. So we see that the essim, the positives are what are influenced by the negatives that's reflected in this din, like in Shabbos. I'll call upon him. So that's the talk, and he concludes with an important message. What HaKadosh Baruch Hu says. Therefore, when Yidden watch, keep the mitzvahs of Pesach, etc. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu therefore also in return protects us in this night and also keeps this night and anticipates to redeem us. And he concludes, he says, this is as it is found in the Chazal say, Hashem says to the Jewish people, to the Yidden, Shomer, Kesha'ata Shomer Neiri, if you will watch and keep my candle, Ani Meshamer Nercha, I will look after you and protect your candle, the Yidden, the Neshamis. Atkan Divrei, that's a synopsis of what the Meshech Chochmah says. Now, it's very clear from the Meshech Chochmah that he sees the Shomer of the Shabbos and the Shomer of the Pesach just in its plain meaning, and that's the correct halachic definition. It's not just the meaning in the Chumash. It's not just the meaning according to the Meforshei Torah. It's also the meaning according to Chazal. That Shomer means keep the Shabbos. That means, according to that, but when we say Shomer, right, and we talk about the Lavi, so the Shomer, according to the way we just take it and the way we see it, all the Shomers mean that when the Pesach approaches, right, that means you shouldn't eat chametz. Keep Pesach. Keep Pesach means on the day of Pesach, so Erev Pesach you have to remove the chametz. On Pesach you shouldn't eat chametz. On Pesach you have to eat matzah. So it says u'shmartem es hamatzos. So therefore you have to keep and refrain from the negative. So refrain from not eating chametz. So it's on the day. It's all on the day. It's all about the day. Shomer, we have to make sure to keep the Pesach on the day. When the time comes, Shabbos, right? When do we keep the loises? And when do we fulfill the positives on Shabbos? When do we fulfill the negatives of Shabbos on Shabbos? By keeping all the lamites malachas, etc., we fulfill the Shomer Yom Shabbos Lakach. Now, the Rogatchover definitely follows that. That's the halachic definition of Shomer, right? And that's the halachic definition of a Shmartim. That's the halachic definition of Vishomer as Bnei Yisrael as a Shabbos. But the Rogatchover, based on different Chazals, as we'll go on to see in different Gemaras, he broadens the horizon for us and shows us that the Shomer is not just limited to the day. And the Ushmartim is not just limited to the time and the day or the date it is addressed. And that is In other words, it's not just relating to the actual day of Pesach. It's not just relating like the Shomer of Pesach, refrain from chametz. It's not just relating to the day of Shabbos, Shomer Hashem Shabbos Lekatchoy, that you shouldn't do the lavin of Shabbos. Let's go on. I'm going to mention to you now, there are lengthy discussions of the Rogatchover in many of his svarim, in many different places, and I will attempt and endeavor to share with you some straightforward substantiations to what the Rogatchover brings. There are many others found throughout his svarim. Some of them are complicated, and time doesn't allow to go into them. And many of them I didn't figure out myself. So we're on equal. We're all on par. With the Rogatchover, it works this way. If you understand the Rogatchover and you get it, everybody gets it. And if you don't get it, it makes no difference how big of a London you are, you're not going to get it. You will if you become a Rogatchover. Whatever the case is, so we need a special schus to work it all out. But Al Kolpon Baruch Hashem, there's definitely a fair amount in this discussion, which is presentable, which is understood, which is appreciated, and we can understand what's going on. Excuse me, Menchi, is the lighting and the photo all good? Okay, no comment.
Oh, good.
Okay, shkoyach. Okay, I just have some water. I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Halfway through the time.
Well, he said it's going on for 2 hours. What are you worried about? If you're tired, you can take a rest and put it on mute so I won't hear you snoring. Apologies for that. We're friends. L'chaim. L'chaim Nachamo.
Chaim.
Chaim L'varacha. Hey. Okay. I'm sure it's the top of the barrel, right? Hey. Shalom. Okay. Let's start with V'shamru b'nei Yisrael es Shabbos. The Rogatchover says Gvaldik inyan, and shows us and teaches us that based on the Chazal, V'shamru is not just limited to the day of Shabbos. He introduces to us a Gemara in Mesichta Yuma, Daf Pei Hey Amud Beis. There's the sugya in detail in Mesichta Yoima or Yuma, however you like to say it. For the Eretz Yisrael, I'll say Yoima. For those who have a Steinsalz in front of them, I'll say Yoima. For those, I believe, even in the art scroll of Mistam, it also says Yoima. But whatever, in Yeshiva, they said Yuma, and Yuma is Kusha ve'Yusha. Now let's move. So in Masechta Yuma, Daf Pei Hey Amud Beis, Amud Aleph and Amud Beis, there's the whole sugya of Pikuach Nefesh Deicha Shabbos. That when there are, God forbid, life-threatening issues, which we know very well, the halach is Pikuach Nefesh is Deicha Kol HaTorah Kula, except for the 3 cardinal sins, etc., etc. Al Kolponi, but Pikuach Nefesh is Deicha Shabbos, right? That's a psak halacha, and there's nothing to talk about, and we shouldn't know of such cases. And Hatzolah can teach us, give us a lesson of Pikuach Nefesh Deicha Shabbos. I'll call upon. We're not going to go into the issues or the details if it's Tchuya or Hutra, or there's no Shabbos in the case of Pikuach Nefesh, etc., etc. These are nice, interesting discussions. We're moving on. So there are many psukim. The Gemara derives the din of Pikuach Nefesh Deicha Shabbos. One of the psukim are as follows. The Gemara says, on Pehei Amud Beis, how do we know Pikuach Nefesh Deicha Shabbos? So one of the Mandaomrim say, the Rai is from what it says, V'shamru v'nei Yisrael es Shabbos. That's what the Gemara quotes. And I see the way the Mefarshim record this Gemara, they also quote the sequence. And that is Lasais es Shabbos, L'Deiroisam, etc. Lasais es Shabbos, L'Deiroisam. So the Gemara says, it says, V'shamru v'nei Yisrael es Shabbos, Lasais es Shabbos. Says the Gemara, Chalel Olav. How do we know Pikuach Nefesh is Deicha Shabbos? Meaning, I can desecrate the Shabbos in order to save a life. Says the Gemara, because Chalel, this pasuk teaches us, V'shamru v'nei Yisrael es Shabbos, teaches us, Chalel Olav Shabbos Achas, Kedei sheyishmer Shabbosos harbe. Chalel Olav Shabbos Achas. We tell you to desecrate, B'mechalel Shabbos Achas, to enable this you're saving his life. So your destination, meaning if you're not going to save his life this Shabbos, he's not going to be here. So he's not going to be able to keep next week's Shabbos. And he's not just not going to be able to keep next week's Shabbos, he's never going to be able to keep any Shabbos, because he's not going to be here anymore. Because God forbid, he's not going to live long. He's not going to live any longer if you're not going to save his life. It's life-threatening. So the Torah says, "V'shamru v'nei Yisrael es haShabbos, la'aseh es haShabbos, v'shamru." You want to keep Shabbos? V'shamru. You have to be a shomer Shabbos. To keep Shabbos, chalei lolav Shabbos achas, kedei sheyishma Shabbos asarvi. From there we know pikuach nefesh deiches Shabbos. Just by the way, even though this is mamish going off, it's not negated to our discussion. And I'm soon going to just bring out the main message, what the Rogatchover wants to bring out from this Gemara. But already, I think if you think about it, you'll see how we see it from the Vishamru, that it's broadening the definition of Vishamru, the Shomer Shabbos. We'll get there soon. Just want to just say that even though this limud, this drasha saksuvim seems to be relating to Kiyum HaMitzvahs, right? In other words, in order to enable him to keep the Shabbos. And that's the reason we are Mechal Shabbos, to enable you to do mitzvahs. We save people's lives in order because they're Yidden. We have to save their lives. And this is actually a point raised by the Mishnah Berurah in Hilchos Shabbos and Siman Shin Chavtes and the Bir Haloch at the end of the Siman. Definitely that the Iker Ingen of Pikuach Nefesh Deiches Shabbos is to save lives, not so much to be Mekayim mitzvahs. So he says, therefore, he has a lengthy Bir Halacha where he explains that really the real reason why Pikuach Nefesh is Deiches Shabbos, because there are many limudim, is as the Rambam says, and the well-known limud, and that is what it says in the Torah, V'chai bohem, right? It says by the mitzvahs. It says there also by mitzvahs. It says in order for you to keep mitzvahs, it says that to fulfill the mitzvahs, v'chai bohem, and you should do the mitzvahs in a form of a chai, that he should be living to be able to do his mitzvahs. So there too, it's connected to mitzvahs. So that's some interesting. Nevertheless, we know it's from v'chai bohem. Okay, I'll call upon him. So even though, like I say, I just want to just say for those who learn Mishnah Berurah and look at the Bir Halacha, and he seems to do away and he makes it sound like it's only a secondary reason, I would just like to bring to your attention that in the Rav Shulchan Aruch, if you take out a Rav Shulchan Aruch in Siman Shin Vov, at the end of the Siman, he brings a Tshuvas HaRashba, where it speaks about a case where one may need to be Mechal Shabbos to save his daughter from being taken away from the religion, being taken out to Shmad. And there's a discussion in the Tshuvas HaRashba, you're allowed to desecrate the Shabbos, the Mechal Shabbos for Pikuach Nefashos, to save her life. And there, the Beis Yosef has a lengthy discussion, the Magen Avraham, all the Achronim, the Taz, and the Alter Rebbe is a very gewaldige exposition on this halacha, and he brings the din, the limud, as I think it is in the Beis Yosef, Chalel olav Shabbos achas, kedei sheyishma Shabbos asarbe, we have right, and we're mandated to be Mechal Shabbos to save this young girl from being taken to go to Shmad, to leave the religion in order Kadesh Yishma Shabbos Harbe. You get it? So there she's alive. So this limud of the Gemara is essential. We need to use this limud. There's no other limit for it because we're talking about Pikuach Nefashos, which are negated to a neshama, to Kiyum HaMitzvahs. She's alive, but we're talking about she's being taken out to Shmad. So Dafka, that limud is brought there. And Dafka, interesting, the Mishnah Berurah also quotes that limud. And also, by the way, Dafka the Gemara, Masechta Shabbos, Daf Kuf Nun Aleph Amud Beis, Dafka brings this limud when the Gemara says that for a Tinik ben Yoimoi who is alive, you'll be Mechal Shabbos. For David HaMelech who has, after he died, you won't be Mechal Shabbos. Says the Gemara, why? Because it says, V'shamru b'nei Yisrael es haShabbos, Chalel olav Shabbos achas, kedei sheyishma Shabbos asarbe. So Dafka the Gemara in Shabbos, Daf Kuf Nun Aleph Amud Beis, Dafka brings this Gemara and doesn't bring all the other limudim, Dafka this limud. So like I say, even though from Mishnah Berurah and Mishin Chavtes, it doesn't seem like it's essential. And he claims for the reasons we claimed, and also for another reason, because the ikar halacha of sofik nefoshes, sofik pikuch nefoshes, we dafka know from the pasuk v'chaybahem and not from the others, as the Gemara states explicitly in Yuma. Nevertheless, like I just said, it's very clear from Simishin Vav that we need to come on to the halacha of Chalal of Shabbos Achas Gedish Mishra Masusarbe. And interestingly, even though the Rambam himself paskins the din of Pikoch Nefashas Deicha Shabbos and Hilcha Shabbos Perik Beis from the pasuk V'chai Bahem, nevertheless, he himself in Hilchas Mamrim Perik Beis in the beginning, Dafka brings the limud of Chalal of Shabbos Achas Gedish Yishma Shabbos Asharbe. Take a look, it's there. And for those who want to do additional work, we'll take out a Tanya in Perik Chav Daled, and Tanya will see that he also quotes the limud of Chalal of Shabbos Achas Gedish Yishma Shabbos Asharbe, and I believe it's based on this Rambam. And so there's a lot to discuss. But again, it's not negeya if we accept the halacha or if it's secondary to the halacha. Here we have a Mefurish Gemara, which teaches us this din based on V'shomru. Says the Rogatchover, what has happened there? Listen to what we've done. Because Hashem says V'shomru v'nei Yisrael as Shabbos, now where is V'shomru written? V'shomru is said on the day of Shabbos. We say it Friday night, yeah? We shout out V'shomru. We don't shout out Sunday morning V'shomru v'nei Yisrael as Shabbos. We say Hayom Yom Rishon b'Shabbos. That's true. And when we came mitzvah Zocher Yom Shabbos Lakache, according to the Ramban, etc., etc. But where is Shomer Shabbos? When is our Shomer? When is one of Shomer Shabbos? When he refrains from doing any of the Lamites Malachas of Shabbos. That's the din of Shomer Yom Shabbos Lakache. Here's the Gemara says that from V'shomru we know that Chalel of Shabbos Achas. In other words, Kadesh Yishma Shabbos Asharbe, it's mandated on a Yid, right? We mandate a Yid before Shabbos arrives. In order to secure that there should be Shmira Shabbos next week, we have to be Mechal Shabbos this week. With that, we secure the Shmira Shabbos next week. So we see that V'shomru doesn't just tell us that we have to keep the Shabbos on the day, and we're mandated to keep the Shabbos on the day, but it's broadened. There's a broad horizon here. Here we say, no, the V'shomru obliges you, even before the Shabbos comes in, to make sure that the Shabbos is kept. And interesting, the Rogatchover has a lot to say on it. He says, because we're not just talking about the Gavra, we're also talking about the Hecht. He doesn't use that term, but it's clear from the Rogatchover he means that, even though he uses those terms frequently, as it's known in the base Brisk, in Reb Chaim Brisk, etc., etc. Reb Chaim Brisker. B'chol the Rogatchover says that on the day of Shabbos, the Gavra, the individual, is mandated not to be Mechal Shabbos, so he has to be a Shemer Shabbos. So therefore, he's mitzvah to be Shemer Shabbos. That's V'shomru on the Shabbos. But when we tell you in advance, we allow you to do in Yonim to make sure that the Shabbos is kept when the Shabbos comes, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to go out of our way before Shabbos to make sure that the Shabbos is kept. We shall heat in Shabbos when Shabbos comes, in order that the Shabbos shouldn't be mechulo, in order that the Shabbos shouldn't be desecrated. You get it? In other words, al pi Torah, it could be that when the Shabbos arrives and you see you're stuck, you're in a situation of an onus, we'll say onus rachmana patre. You get it? Because it's beyond your means. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants, because it says V'shomru, that's the chiddush of the Rogatchover. What do we see from this Gemara? That being that it says V'shomru, in other words, HaKadosh Baruch Hu could have said Lo yisasach chol malacha, which Lo yisasach chol malacha means don't do the work on Shabbos. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu nevertheless didn't suffice with that. And he keeps on telling us throughout the Torah to use the terms of Shmartem es HaShabbos, V'shomru b'nei Yisrael es HaShabbos, to tell us that the chiyuv of Shmir Shabbos is not just on the day, but it obliges us in advance to keep the Shabbos, to make sure that the Shabbos is kept. Now this is not just a pshat. This tells us the head for Bikuach Nefesh Deicha Shabbos, number one. So it's a very clear thing, but it's not just an extreme case. The Rogatchover brings another interesting case, and then analyzes it based on the term Shmira, V'shomru. And the truth is, if you think about it, if I tell a person don't do something, right, just in the plain meaning, but basically the Rogatchover is not saying that's the plain meaning. Rogatchover is proving it from the Chazal, because based on the Chazal, we will understand all these halachas as we'll go on to discuss. But even in the plain meaning, if I'll tell you don't do it on the day. When the time comes, you're about to do something, we tell you don't do it, right? So it makes sense to do it on the day. When I say, hey, watch out, don't do it. Watch out makes sense, even when I tell you in advance. Be aware. Keep off the grass. Watch out. Keep it in mind. Hitzach. So that Lashon Shmira means, right, you need like a protective mechanism, take precautionary measures. So that language fits very well, even when it's in advance. But again, we're not basing it on the Hebrew grammar, etc., etc. For those grammistin, however you're supposed to say it, for those Yiddishisten, whoever likes to go into the language of the grammar, Hebrew grammar, I'm sure you'll find that it fits, but it's not negated to us. We're talking now on halacha. Now the Rogatchover says another gewaldige thing. This is, I believe those who are learning Daf Yomi will appreciate it, even though I understand that today's Daf is Daf Yud Ches, which is a gewaldige Rosh Tevis, which is Shabbos Chai, and es soll sein nor leben bei alle Yidden l'chaim v'levrocha. That's it, time to say l'chaim. Another l'chaim. L'chaim, gewaldig. Okay? Shabbos Chai. So there's a Gemara in Shabbos Daf Yud Beis Amud Aleph. L'chaim v'levrocha. Gemara says in Shabbos Daf Yud Beis Amud Aleph as follows. Listen what the Gemara says. Pasha the Gemara, it's a Bryce. It's not a Pasha the Gemara, a Bryce. The Bryce says, Chayiv Odom L'mashmesh Bibgodov Erev Shabbos Im Chashecha. A Yid is mandated, this Chayiv is obliged to inspect his garments, Erev Shabbos, close to dark, close to Shabbos. Okay, Rashi says what he says, but plainly it means you have to check, and like the Mishnah Brura explains, this halacha, this, by the way, this is a halacha psuka in Rambam and Hilchah Shabbos Perik Chof Vav. At the end of the Perik, in Perik Chof Vav, the Rambam brings this halacha, la halacha, and he brings it verbatim. The language of the Gemara Chayiv Odom L'mashmesh. He says the lashon v'chayiv, it comes in sequence to another din. The Chayiv Odom L'mashmesh b'begodav erev Shabbos im chshecha. The Shulchan Aruch also brings it in Hilchah Shabbos and Simeresh Nun Beis at the end. So there the language is a bit, it's not identical to the Shas. This is already raised by the Pri Megadim in his commentary on the Masechta Shabbos, and also the Pri Megadim on the spot, and also the Aderes and the Sefer Zocher LeDavid, and also the Mishnah Berurah on the spot and Simeresh Nun Beis, with the lashon of the Mechaber of the Shulchan Aruch is mitzvah, mitzvah, it doesn't say chayiv. There's a difference if I say chayiv or I say mitzvah. Chayiv means you're mandated, you're mechuyev, there's no way out. Mitzvah means it's a mitzvah. That means it's like above and beyond, it's a mitzvah min hamufkor, it's a good thing, it's a right thing. You fulfill a mitzvah and the like, but there's nothing really driving you that you must. There's no must there. It's a mitzvah to do it. So the lashon is mitzvah lemashmesh b'begodov, and there the lashon is samuch lechashecha. So there the Achronim explain, and the Vilna Gaon and Bir Agra also deals with that lashon samach lechashecha and im chashecha. They say, that's why the Shulchan Aruch didn't deviate from the Gemara or the Rambam. The reason they say, because they changed two lashonis. They don't say chayiv, they say mitzvah. They don't say im chashecha, they say samach lechashecha. They say one is connected to the other, because samach lechashecha would mean not so close to Shabbos, like a half an hour to Shabbos, before Shabbos. That's like Samach LeMincha. If we know Arvei Pesachim, Samach LeMincha would be like approximately half an hour before Mincha, right? So that means half an hour before Shabbos. So because the Shulchan Aruch says, and that's the lashon of the Beis Yosef, Samach LeMincha, of the Mechaber of the Shulchan Aruch. Therefore, he says mitzvah, because Samach LeMincha, half an hour before Shabbos. No, we're not going to drive you mad. Mitzvah. To inspect your pockets, check your pockets, like the Mishnah Berurah explains, right? But im chashecha means ot Shabbos, ot sobald the shkia, so nun to the shkia. Yeah, me wird beshige, right? Everybody in the house Shabbos, right? Yeah, we have 18 minutes, now rush, and then all of a sudden panic, right? Ot the shkia, everything goes wacko. Baruch Hashem, and then Shabbos settles, Baruch Hashem, and Basa Shabbos Basa Menucha gewaldig, right? Baruch Hashem. So listen, matana toiva yeshli, right? That's what the gewaldige matana we have. I'll call upon him. So the Rambam and the Gemara, the Brisa, which says im chashecha, which means mamish near the shkia, that's where it says chayiv is amended. But listen to the lashon HaGemara. The Brisa says chayiv, you're obliged, and the Gemara says Amar Rabbi Yosi. I think the lashon is Rabbi Yosi. Amar Rabbi Yosi, hilchese rabosi l'shabto. What the Brisa, Hananya said in the Brisa, what he just told us, this is an important halacha. So there we go. Would you believe it? Sounds like a Pasha Din, right? Like I say, it's recorded in the Rambam, recorded in the Shulchan Aruch. This lashon hilchas rabosi l'Shabbos, it's an important halacha. Why is it important? It's Pasha. Because what do you have to inspect your pockets? Because if you have stuff in your pockets and there's no erev, you'll end up carrying out in Rosh Hashanah on Shabbos. You'll be chayiv skila, whatever, or chatos, you're going to be desecrate the Shabbos. You're going to desecrate the Shabbos. So you're going to be a Machal Shabbos. You're not going to be a Shemer Shabbos. So therefore, right? It's a very important halacha for Shabbos to check your pockets before. I remember still as a kid. I remember as a child. I'm not going to say who, an Erlich Yid, because they'll say, I don't know, whatever. So it's not Negei who, but someone very close to me. I never understood why until I learned the halacha. Before they said Baruch Hu, because that's generally the din, when you say Baruch Hu and Shul, either Mizmah Shalom Yom Shabbos or Baruch Hu, that's when you Mekabel Alecha Shabbos, right? So before, I remember the Yid used to check his pockets. I used to see his hands every single Friday, going into his pockets and all his pockets of his pants and his kapota to make sure he has nothing in his pockets, and then he said Baruch Hu Toil. In Bepashtus, that was the key of this halacha, right? All good. But here comes, there's a Rogatchover. Would you believe it? Yes, of course you can believe it. Because here the Rogatchover Gaon addresses this in a response in 1929. There's a response he writes from Dvinsk. He addresses this Gemara. And the truth is, if you think about it, there are many halachas in Masechta Shabbos. You'll be learning Masechta Shabbos, right? Many dafim, Baruch Hashem. Yeah. Nevertheless, you'll find many halachas which tell you how you have to make sure. And the many gzeres and many takonos chachamim that you shouldn't be nichshel in them, and you should be over Siddur Isis, right? Ganz Hilch Masechta Shabbos is all about that. Nevertheless, where do you find the halacha of Hilchas? This statement, Rabbi Yosi, Hilchas Rabbosi l'Shabbata, you find dafke here and nowhere else. What's geht da on? What's so important about this din? We understand the importance, but if it's so important, what do we say by all of them? We can also come to desecrate, and nevertheless, you don't say Hilchas Rabbosi l'Shabsa. There's something over here in this halacha, which the Gemara says, Chayiv Adam l'Mashbesh b'Godov, right? Erev Shabbos im Shecha, which if Rabbi Yosi wouldn't have said it, maybe it wouldn't have been brought out, that message, and he brings out the message, and it's said dafke here. What's geht da on? A gewaltige Rogatchover. You know what the Rogatchover says? Hecht und steunt. Says the Rogatchover, here we come into the Shomer is Yom Shabbos L'Katshri. A gewaldige halacha. What is the din of Shomer? Shomer is Yom Shabbos L'Katshri means you can't desecrate the Shabbos on the day of Shabbos. Daf Hecht and Shabbos. That's on the Shabbos day. But we just prove from Masechta Yom Daf Pei Amud Beis. But like I say, it's proven from this halacha gufa. Now where HaKadosh Baruch Hu says a Shmartem es Shabbos, it has a broader definition. It's not just when you're on the day of Shabbos. It also obliges you that you should make sure to do in Yonim before Shabbos kicks in. HaKadosh Baruch Hu conveys to us, doing Yonim before Shabbos kicks in to make sure to keep Shabbos, that the Shabbos should not be desecrated. That was what we said before in Masechta Yom Daf Pei. That's precisely what the Gemara says here. The Gemara is saying here, says the Rogatchover, that's the message. Hilchas Rabbosi l'Shabbata. You know what that means? Because this halacha that the Hananiah said in the Brisa is based on a posuk of the Torah Shomer. He didn't make it up. This is different than all other takonos chachamim. This is a takona because it says Shomer es Yom Shabbos L'Katshri. Well, you have to think exactly why it doesn't apply to other takonos. But I'll call upon him, let's focus on this one, and let's appreciate what the Rogatchover says. Because we need to make sure that he shouldn't end up desecrating the Shabbos by carrying on Shabbos. So the Shabbos will be mechulul. Therefore, Hananiah says in the Brisa, b'mem chayiv, that's the Lashon chayiv, is a mandate. Who state a mandate? Why not mitzvah? Why isn't mitzvah good enough? No, you know why you're chayiv? Because the Torah says Shomer Yom Shabbos L'Katshri. Not to do a lav in the Torah is only a mitzvah. You're chayiv. Shomer Yom Shabbos is a chiyuv, right? And if not, God forbid, you finish. The same goes, says the Gemara, chayiv adam l'mashmish. Why chayiv? Because it says Shomer Yom Shabbos L'Katshri. So the Shomer didn't just say, don't keep the Shabbos on the Shabbos day. It's also telling you before the Shabbos kicks in, do such in Yonim to make sure that you don't desecrate the Shabbos. So that's the chayiv. That's why it says Hilchas Rabbosi l'Shabbata. Because this is a halacha which is based on the Oraisa. It's based on the Shomer. So this Hilchas Rabbosi l'Shabbata is telling you this is a halacha, a serious halacha. It's like Ke'en the Oraisa. It has a geder, says the Rogatchover. It's a geder of the Oraisa. It's a geder of the Oraisa based on the Shomer. Therefore, it's Hilchas Rabbosi l'Shabbata. It's not stam at Takonos Chachomim or Achshash Chachomim. It's based on the Shomer. Varim and Floyd. But he goes on and he doesn't suffice with it. With this, he reconciles a gewaltige Zach. The Rogatchover, Baruch Hashem, we acquainted ourselves in our shiurim. We mentioned this not frequently, but from time to time. He has glosses on the Kuzari, on the hymns. He wrote poems. The Kuzari wrote certain poetry. So the Rogatchover Gaon has glosses and references and ha'oris on the poetry of the Kuzari. In other words, he appreciated Vaisachai's poetry and he understood exactly what the messages were. They seem to be like, whatever, like not straightforward, like a chidot, whatever. Also, he appreciates very much the sefer called Azhoris from Rab Shloime ibn Gabirol. Rab Shloime ibn Gabirol was a known poet in the 11th century, and he wrote a lot of different piyutim, and he was known as a poet. What is most unfortunate, he only lived for about 30 years. He passed away after he was about 30 years of age when he passed away. Nicht zu glauben. But nevertheless, at the age of 18, nicht zu glauben. By the way, he was from Spain, and one of the Gedolei Yisrael from Spain. He wrote a sefer called Azhoris. It's a published sefer. You can have it today. And in many different circles, in many communities, they read Azharot, on Shavuos. They read different Hazoras from different Gedolei Yisrael. Basically, what is the Hazoras? This is a sefer penned by Rab Shloime ibn Gabirol. He compiles and comprises all the mitzvahs of the Torah and all the licenses of the Torah. And that's what they called Azhoros, Azharot, but in a mode of poetry, right? In other words, with such points, whatever, whoever knows poetry or whatever, like in a poem, like in a poetic way, in a poetic style, with like such hints and such words and such poetic, etc., right? In the terms which allude to the different positive mitzvahs and allude to different positive, negative mitzvahs. And he has a section on the positive mitzvahs and he has a section of the negative mitzvahs. So when it comes to one of the mitzvahs, he said there's an interesting section here in the Azhoris. The words of the where he talks about the negative mitzvahs, right? In that group, the Azhoris, Rabbi Shloime ibn Gabirol says as follows. We'll go on. The words they read as follows. V'hakelim timashesh, v'hachametz tiroshesh, v'tisrefeno b'shesh ad echad v'esri. That's that stanza. That's however you meant to say it in the poetry. Okay, that's that section. Again, hachametz hakelim timashesh, hachametz tiroshesh, what are we talking about? So the Rogatchover tells us, and it's obvious. The last two are obvious. Tiroshesh means to burn. You have to burn the chametz, and you have to burn it in the 6th hour. Okay. Now there's a commentary called Zoyer Harokia from the Tashbats, that was Rab Shimon. Rab Shimon ben Semach, he wrote a commentary on the Azhoros. So you have a standard edition of the Azharot with the Pirush Zoyer Harokia, which is available. I'm sure if you have the different search engines, you'll find it, and even not, you can buy a hard copy. It's not an unusual thing. Now, mainly the reason the Zoyer Harokia wrote his commentary because the Azharot usually follow with the school of thought of the Bala Halachos Gdolos, and he counts certain mitzvahs and doesn't follow in the number of the 613 mitzvahs. It doesn't seem to follow with the Rambam and the like. And the Zoyer Harokia dislikes the Azhoros for that reason, for many reasons. And one of the main reasons is because it doesn't seem to follow very well and match up and meet up with the sheet of the Rambam, and therefore he has a lot of refutations. He refutes and takes issue with many different statements of the Azhoros. The Rogatchover Gaon is overly protective of the Azhoros, the Bala Azhoros, and keeps on knocking the Zoyer Harokia because he dislikes him, and he says he's the Mishorer Haniflo. he says this amazing Meshorer. That's the way he describes Rab Shlomo ben Gabirul, the Rogatchover. In other words, he appreciates all that poetic stuff he writes, and he sees so much lumdus in it, and therefore he says, how do you speak that way to this Meshorer Hanifla, this amazing poet? And therefore he disproves and dislikes and argues frequently with the Zohar Rakia, and he shows how he's wrong, etc. Let me just go on. So, the fact is, when it comes to the chametz part, again, it's in the section of the prohibitions, but we know the mitzvah of burning the chametz, and it says tashbisus arma b'techem, it's a positive mitzvah, right? So why is it in the section of the negatives? So immediately the Zohar Rakia attacks the Azhoris, and he wonders what's it doing here. He puts chametz teroishesh with the serfena b'sheish, doesn't belong in the section. This is a section of negative mitzvahs. This is a positive mitzvah to burn the chametz. So he reconciles it at the end. He says, because possibly it goes with the sheet of the Rambam, that the prohibition of keeping chametz on Erev Pesach is not just with the positive, but there's also a negative, and therefore he puts it into this section. We're not going to discuss that. But here we come to Vahakelim Timashesh. What is Vahakelim Timashesh? Says the Rogatchover Gaon, Hakelim Timashesh is talking about the Big Day Shabbos, the Gemara we just mentioned. Right? Chayev Odom Lamashmesh B'Godov B'Erev Shabbos Im Chshecha. Says the Hasbala Hazhorois, Va'kelim Timashesh. What does the kelim means? The B'Godim. Timashesh, you inspect them on Erev Shabbos Im Chshecha. But he's maramaz it, he says it in the Belosh in Chido, right? You have to just know, you have to be a Lamdan to know. That is the Gemara, says the Rogatchover, in Masechta Shabbos, Daf Yud Beis. And this is what he says in these short words, Va'kelim Timashesh. But the question arises, as the Baal Zohar Rakia asks, Va'kelim Timashesh is one of the 613 mitzvahs. What's it doing in the Sefer Azhoros? Chayev Odom Lamashbesh B'Godov B'Erev Shabbos Im Chshecha is a takana de Rabbonon. Hanani says it's a mandate for Eden to make sure that they shouldn't be over on Nisa D'Oraisa. What's it doing in the Azhoros? The Azhoros only record mitzvahs or lavin, which are negated to what? Which are dini Torah, not the Dim Rabbonon. Says the Zohar Rakia, what's he doing here? Number two, he says it's a positive, not a negative. You actively have to check your pockets. So if any, you should put it in the section that deals with the positive mitzvahs. Why does he put it in the Azhoros? Here comes the Rogatchover and saves the Azhoros. Givaldik, based on what we just said, on the Vishomru, the way he explained the Gemara, Hilchas Harabasi L'Shabbata. This is exactly what the Azhoros is saying. I'm going to read for you the pearls of wisdom of the Rogatchover Gaon. Dvorim nefloi mamish givaldik tayir averta. Let me read them for you. That's one mile we have when it's over online. I can have all my notes in front of me, all my svarim in front of me. It's all right. I didn't bother looking at my notes, Baruch Hashem. But here I can read the words of the pearl, the words of the tire of the pedal from Rogatchover. Listen to what the Rogatchover says. So the Tzafas Panayach says, Zeret Soine Loima, Timash Hakelim Timashesh. This is what the Gemara says in Masechta Shabbos, Daf Yud Aleph, Daf Yud Beis, Chayev Odom Lamashmesh B'Godov. Uret Soine Loima. The intent of the Bala Azhoris is to put it in the negatives. Why does he put it in the negative section? Because we just finished explaining the Gemara that the obligation of checking your pockets before Shabbos is based on the Shomor es Yom HaShabbos L'Katshoy. Shomor tells us don't desecrate the Shabbos. But we explained it's not just don't desecrate the Shabbos on the Shabbos day, it's also do things in advance that the Shabbos day shouldn't become desecrated. That's why you have to check your pockets before and empty your pockets. So he says, you know why he puts it in the section of the negatives? The Zemikro de Shomor. Two things he says. Number one, I understand why he puts it in the biblical mitzvahs, because it's from a pasuk. And I understand why he puts it in the biblical negative mitzvahs, because we know it from the pasuk Shomor. The Zeretz and Eloimar, and this is what the Gemara says. Hilchas Rabosi. And we ask, why did the Gemara say Hilchas Rabosi l'Shabbata? Why did this? The message is as follows. All your fellows who learn Daf Yomi, and you're holding Daf Yud Ches, you can go back to Daf Yud Beis and learn over the Gemara again. Says the Rogatchover Gaon. What does Hilchas Rabosi mean? You learn false pshat. You didn't know pshat. Das is emes la'amitoi, because he's the real Sarah Torah. We know the term Sarah Torah is thrown around, like the word Gaon has been thrown around. So when the Rogatchover Gaon, they're used for the Gaonim. So when the Rogatchover Gaon wants to refer to the Balatanya, and he doesn't just wants to convey the message that I'm not just borrowing the term Gaon, he calls him a Gaon ha'amiti, right? The true Gaon. He had to add the amiti, because today everybody's called Gaon, right? Harav Gaon, everybody's a Gaon. And Tom, Dick, or Harry. I'm not belittling the Gaonim, but he's the Gaon ha'amiti. The Rogatchover writes in the Balatanya. I think he also writes that way in the Vilna Gaon somewhere, etc. But all good. The Iker, which is unusual. The Iker, unusual that he even calls the Balatanya Gaon ha'amiti. I'm saying because he doesn't refer to Achronim. That's what I need to say. Excuse me. Don't get me wrong. Let's go on. I want to talk about, I learned this from the Rogatchover Gaon. It's the Sarah Torah. So Rav Zevin says, it's questionable if there's such a thing, that there's a ministering angel for Torah. Is there such a thing as a Sarah Torah? How can there be a Sarah Torah? Torah is the Chachmas Torah, Tzoni Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's a Sarah Torah. Basically, that's what a statement the Rav Zevin mentions. But nevertheless, the previous Rebbe called the Rogatchover Gaon the Sarah Torah. But because the Sarah Torah is thrown around today and is used for all different whatever, I'm not going to go there now. But the Iker, so he's surely the Sarah Torah Amiti. And B'meila, therefore, I think you should learn over Shabbos. I'm going further. We should learn over Shabbos Yud Beis. So says the Rogatchover, why does he say Hilchos Rabbosi? It doesn't just mean this is an important halacha. Listen to what he says. V'zeh halacha geder min haTorah. That's the meaning. Hilchos Rabbosi l'Shabbat. This halacha is a geder min haTorah. That's why he says it dafka. Gewaldig. And therefore, when he goes on to the Zohar Rakia, and the Zohar, he sees the Zohar Rakia says, these are the words of Zohar, these are the questions. I don't know what the Zohar is saying. It's a mitzvah sesa. It has nothing to do with the loisese. It's also the Rabbanon. What's it doing there? So again, the Rogatchover, he doesn't give up. He explains the Azoris, he whacks the Zohar Rakia. Right? Like I said, because he's the Mesharer Anifla. He says, Pshat is, Zeb begeder Shmira, the criteria of this din is Shmira, that's the Shomer. And he says, Ayin berambam, Kan, look at the Rambam here. In other words, the Rambam in Perik Chavav of Hilchos Shabbos, where he records this din, he brings this din with another din, which speaks about the negatives. He says, don't walk out with a machat Erev Shabbos, because you'll end up carrying it on a Shabbos. And then he says, therefore, check the chayiv. And then he says, you're mandated to check your pockets Erev Shabbos. So it's very clear. The Rambam also sees it in that context, right, etc., that it's like a negative. And he says, v'zeh lav, and this is a lav. Hishomer pen v'chulu. Basically, he says, like we said. So what we see from up till this point is the definition in halacha of V'shomru, right? Ushmartem es ha-Shabbos. V'shomru b'nei Yisrael es ha-Shabbos is not just referring to the day, but it basically is referring to every Yid, to Klal Yisrael, and to Yidden in general, right? That we have to know in advance to do in Yonim. Either, like we say, Chalal of Shabbos, or you have to do in Yonim before Shabbos to make sure that the Shabbos shouldn't be desecrated. Not in vain, there are many halachas. We know that if you're allowed to be mafligim bisfino, right? There's a halacha you can't go out. There's a separate halachas in Gemara, right? You learned it in Erev and Shabbos, right? In the middle of the week, if you know you're going to end up having to be on the ship and the Shabbat and be Mechal Shabbos on Shabbos, you're not allowed to do it before Shabbos. So there's a whole big discussion, etc., etc. And according to the Rogatchover, it's not just a Gzeira or an Isur or whatever. If you know you're going to have to end up desecrating the Shabbos, you're not allowed to do things in advance, which will bring you to desecrating the Shabbos. According to the Rogatchover, this is actually mandated, and it's a gather of Shomer. The Shomer, the Torah itself, which says Shomer, Shem Shabbos L'Kachay, actually tells us you have to be careful throughout the week to make sure that the oncoming Shabbos is not going to be desecrated. We're moving on. That's all in relation to Shabbos, like we're treating the different psukim mentioned by the Rabbi Simchas that we see. It's not just connected to the Shabbos. Let's go to Chametz. Ushmartem es hamatzos, right? Ushmartem es hamatzos. We have time, yeah? We still have enough time? Okay. So we find also, in relation to Pesach, it says, Shomer is Chodesh HaAviv. Shomer is Chodesh Aviv. That's in relation to Pesach, right? The Torah says in Parshas Re'eh, Shamor Chodesh Aviv. Now, we find the Lashon Shomer, right? What does Chodesh Aviv mean? What is that? What's the message of that pasuk? So the Meir Simcha says, see, we find the Lashon Shomer in relation to Pesach. But in the Rogatchover's context, and this is actually a tshuva found in another place where the Rogatchover brings this to our attention to highlight and convey that we find in relation to Pesach in general, to the general Chodesh Nisan, meaning the Yontov of Pesach, the Lashon of Shomer is Chodesh Aviv. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to the Bezdin, this is a mandate to the Bezdin, Shomer is Chodesh Aviv, make sure that the Chodesh Aviv spring, Pesach will be in spring. And that's why when there's a need of making a Chodesh Ibur, we had a Chodesh Adar to make sure that the seasons work out. There should be. There we find that HaKadosh Baruch Hu uses the Lashon Shomer as Chodesh HaAviv, right? What is Shomer as Chodesh HaAviv? Because we have to know that in advance. Again, the Shomer, we know that's the Loises. Shomer is for the day. But we now see from the Shas in relation to Shabbos that it has this broader definition. And meaning that the Shomer tells us that not just keep it for the day, but keep it and take precautionary measures in advance. B'meila lefizeh, the Shomer is Chodesh Aviv. I take out a Rashi, interesting, before the Rashi, and it's like obvious. What a Shomer is Chodesh Aviv. So I'll read for you the Rashi. Rashi says in Parshas Re'eh on Shomer is Chodesh Aviv. Oh no, I had it a minute ago. 1 minute. Let me just read it for you because I think it's just you'll appreciate. Give me a second. Shomer is Chodesh Aviv. Get you finden Pasuk jetzt. Yeah, that is. That is where? That is, where is it? That is in Yudala Tezayin. Yudala Tezayin in Dvorim. Yudala Tezayin. I'm going to read it for you in a moment. I'm coming. Tezayin. So the pasuk says, Shomer is Chodesh Aviv. Yudala Tezayin. No Ding Gefindos. I can't find it now all of a sudden. Oh boy. No, it's not Tezayin. Where is it? Oh boy. Okay. No. I know time is flying. Shomer is Chodesh Aviv. No, where's the Abal Kaira in the house? So basically, Rashi says that Shomer is Chodesh Aviv. Rashi makes it very clear, and it's pashut that way. Shomer would mean, that means, Rashi says, Mikoidem. Rashi says clearly, right? We're talking to the Bezdin. So Rashi says, excuse me, Shomer means Mikoidem before. Pardon?
Perik Tet Zayin Pasuk Aleph.
Yashakoyach. Perik Tet Zayin Pasuk Aleph. Yes, correct. Shomer is Chodesh Aviv. So Rashi says on Shomer is Chodesh Aviv. Shomer, says Rashi, Shomer is Chodesh Aviv. Mikoidem boyoy, before it arrives, Shomer shetehero la'aviv. Make sure that it is suitable for Aviv. Lahakriv bayis minchas ha'omer. The imlav, and if not, aberes hashana, make the shana ma'uber. So it's very clear. Rashi is basically explaining the term Shomer is Chodesh Aviv. But it's an unusual lashon. What's the lashon of Shomer is Chodesh Aviv? So Rashi is telling us, yes, precisely that, like we've explained. Mikoidem boyoy shmar. Shmar is not just telling you, like we say, Shomer Shemesabish Lakachi on the day. It also has a broader definition. It's stretched out and it's extended to in advance, preceding the time, before the Chodesh Aviv comes. So Shomer Mikoidem, that when the Chodesh Aviv comes, we should have the Pesach in the right time. So it obliges us, it's an obligation in advance. And this is what the Rogatchover says in the Shailas Tshuvis Varshe, Simaresh Tes. I will read it for you right now. And the Rogatchover going says, yes, here we go. Mitzvahs Esed Shomer, excuse me, let me just read it for you, I'm sorry, yeah. Gabi Ibor Hashona. Ibor Hashona, he doesn't bring this pasuk, but he brings a Yerushalmi. Ibor Hashona, so the Talmud Yerushalmi teaches that we know the din of Ibor Hashona from what it says, Ushmartem es hamoyados. You get it? Ushmartem es hamoyados. Says the Rogatchover, yes, exactly. Because this is a special takonas bezdin, bishvil shmira. Right? In other words, because that's the rule. Wherever it says the Loshen Shomer, it says the Rogatchover, it's mutal ala bezdin l'saken takono is bozeh, that it should occur. We have to know in advance to make sure that it should be kept. So in other words, it has a broader definition. Every Yid has to keep the Shabbos to make sure the Shabbos is not desecrated. Here it's addressed to the Bezdin. It's that the Bezdins have to do all the takonis to make sure that the Pesach is kept, to shmartem es hamoyados, etc., etc. That's the Shomer es Chedesh Aviv in advance. We're going on. Let's go to a shmartem. We have to bring it closer to home. Let's go to a shmartem es hamatzos. So the Gemara says in Masechta Pesachim, Daf Mem Amud Aleph, the Gemara queries about grain. Now, by Pashtus, all the Rishonim learn this Gemara that is talking about matzah's mitzvah, that is for the matzah to what we mekayim mitzvah's matzah b'leil Pesach. So there's halacha of ushmartem es hamatzos. You have to protect the matzah when the kneading sira, whatever, for all the different stages. You have to make sure it shouldn't come lidei chimutz, and we also have to have the shimur l'shem matzah's mitzvah, etc., etc. So all that the preparations also have to be in such a mode. Now, the Gemara says, the Gemara discusses the grain which we're making the matzah with. Now, what is interesting is as follows. The Rambam records this Gemara in Hilchas Pesach, Hilchas Chametz Matzah. That's the way the Rambam calls Hilchas Chametz Matzah, not Hilchas Pesach. We have Hilchas Pesach. The Rambam calls Hilchas Korban Pesach, Hilchas Pesach, Hilchas Korban Pesach. We have the Rambam, the Hilchas of Chametz Matzah is called in the Rambam Hilchas Chametz Matzah. So in Hilchos Chametz Matzah Perikei Halacha Tes, the Rambam brings this Gemara in relation to Pashtus to all baked matzah throughout the Pesach. Any matzah is consumed throughout the Pesach, the Rambam introduces and applies this pasuk of Shmartem es hamatzos. The Magen Mishnah already makes mention of it and says, yes, it seems like the main message of the Ushmartem es hamatzos refers to the night of Pesach. We find something novel in this Rambam, and that's what the Rogatchover wants to highlight with this Rambam. Basically, the Gemara says, the Gemara queries, the Gemara basically makes a statement. The Gemara says that the grain we're using to make the flour for the matzah, says the Gemara, about should we soak it in water? So the question is, are we allowed to soak it in water before we are teichen it and prepare it, etc., etc.? Is it a mitzvah, or is there an allowance, or should we? Listen to what the Gemara says. So the Gemara says, mitzvah b'lesisa. It's a mitzvah to soak the grain, because it says ushmartem es hamatzos. And if we're not going to soak the grain in water, in what way and how will we perform the ushmartem es hamatzos? You know what's going on? So what do we see from this Gemara? Says the Rogatchover, gewaltige thing, it's extended even further. Again, we're talking about the term HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't just say bake matzah and don't bake chametz, right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu says we have to eat matzah, and he says don't eat chametz. But when he says to prepare the matzah, he says prepare it in a mode of ushmartem es hamatzos, right? Says the Gemara, because it says ushmartem es hamatzos, it's a mitzvah b'lesisa. Put the grain in water in order to accelerate the chimutz, because when it's in water, right, it's going to cause chimutz, and make sure to work with it that it shouldn't come lidei chimutz. In other words, if it's just dry grain, we're not fulfilling ushmartem es hamatzos. What does ushmartem es hamatzos mean? Watch, it should remain matzah, and it shouldn't end up being chametz. Now, it doesn't just mean don't bake chametz, just bake matzah. It means you should make sure, do something, ushmartem es hamatzos, that when we end up baking and we're preparing all the preparations, it shouldn't end up being chametz, it should end up being matzah. You get it? So we use, therefore, the term of ushmartem. Ushmartem tells us we have to bake the matzahs in such a way that it can come lidei chimutz. That's by soaking it. Mitzvah b'lesisa. It's a mitzvah to put it and soak it in water. By soaking it in water and you're working with the dough, you'll make sure to fulfill. That's when you'll fulfill ushmartem es hamatzos, because then you'll make sure that it doesn't come to the chimutz. What is ushmartem es hamatzos? Make sure it is not chametz. How do you make sure it's not chametz? By enabling it should be chametz. You'll make sure it's not chametz. That means even before it becomes matzah, and before it doesn't become chametz, you're already making sure and doing it in such a mode that it shouldn't be chametz and it should be matzah. How do you know that from? Ushmartem es hamatzah, says the Rogatchover. So here we have another Mefurish Gemara relation to Chometz Umatzah. That it says Ushmartem es hamatzah, that because it says Ushmartem, that's why it's a mitzvah b'lusisa, so we have to do it in such a way. And the Rambam records this halacha not in relation to mitzvah b'lusisa, because if it's a mitzvah to be loisis, is a separate discussion. Because the Gemara discusses, it makes the Goinim, etc. They were mavatal the lasisa. We don't know how to do the lasisa, so that's a separate issue. But the pasuk, the Rambam records this pasuk that when we do the dogon, we have to make sure that there's no water, etc., because it says a shmarta v'samatzah. So it's very clear from this Rambam that all the matzah which we consume on the Pesach has to be in such a way of shmarta v'samatzah that there is water, and we have to just make sure that we have to keep it away from the water, because when there's water, it can come to the chametz. We have to make sure that while we're preparing it, it's the mode of preparation has to be such a mode that in advance we are going to secure that it won't end up being chametz, but it's going to end up being matzah, because it says ushmartem, the same message. And the Rogatchover then brings a Gemara in Masechta Menachos Daf Nun Gimel. The reason, because we're coming closer to Kochim. In Masechta Menachos Daf Nun Gimel, the din is, the Gemara says that the Mishnah says in Daf Nun Hey Amadala, for those who already learned Daf Yomi, so you just finished Masechta Menachos, right? And you're going there soon, in Mirz Hashem to have it, you'll have Arichas Yomim, you'll get there. And for that bracha, for all the Yidden who sit and learn, I'm going to say L'chaim again. L'chaim v'levracha. The truth is, you have to have Arichas Yomim to hold out from this year. L'chaim. Menshi, we can still go on. I'm going to wrap it up any minute. We're wrapping it up. We have time. You said 2 hours. Baruch Hashem. Okay. Hello. Clear? All good? Okay. The Gemara says in Masechta Menachos Daf Nun Hey that when it comes to the meal offerings or to the lechem aponim, the din is that kol ha-menachos bois matzah. The Mishnah says that all the menachos, all the meal offerings in the Beis Hamikdash had to be matzah. They were not allowed to be chometz, being that we have to bring, because it says chol sa'er v'chol devash lo yisaktir mimenu ishal Hashem. We're not allowed to put any chometz on the mizbeach, and therefore all the menachos, all the meal offerings have to be made of matzah. Made matzah, they're not chometz. Well, there is the lechem aponim, even though it's called lechem, nevertheless the lechem aponim was also needed in a mode that it was matzah, it wasn't leavened. Now the Mishnah says in Masechta Menachos Daf Nun Hey, says the Mishnah that we need, when we prepare the offerings, right, the meal offerings or the lechem aponim, it has to be, we need the dough, the poishrin, with lukewarm water. And the Gemara says, but that's what the Mishnah says. You knead it, you prepare it, the flour and the oil and the water, whatever. Depends when the water comes in and the oil comes in, but I'll call upon him, it should be lukewarm water, but you have to make sure, you have to watch that it shouldn't come to the chimutz. So the Gemara in Daf Nun Gimel asks, where do we know that it has to be kneaded and prepared b'poishrin with lukewarm water? Now, the truth is, the Gemara means to ask, according to Rashi, according to the Pashtus HaSugya based on Rashi, the Gemara's question is, how do we know that you have to be mishamron milovim lidei chibutz? How do you know? You have to make sure that we have to bake it in such a mode or prepare it in such a way it shouldn't come lidei chibutz. So that's one way of learning. But other achroinim learn, and that's the way the Rogatchover seems to learn. The Gemara is not just asking the question, how do we know that we have to make sure that it doesn't, that the meal offering or the lechem aponim don't become chametz. The question is also, how do we know that it has to be with lukewarm water? In other words, because cold water is not going to do the job, and very hot water is going to scald. It's going to scald it, it's going to burn it, and it's going to passel the mincha. So it can't be. But how do you know warm water? According to certain achronim, according to Rashi, the question is, how do we know we have to make sure it's not chametz? So the Gemara, so the first mandamah wants to say, possibly we know it from Pesach. We know it from Pesach. How do we know it from Pesach? Because just like it says by Pesach, ushmartem es hamatzos, right? The Gemara we just mentioned in the Masechta Pesachim Daf Mem. It says over there clearly that we have to knead it with such a way that it shouldn't come to the chimutz. So here it's also very clear. Let's learn the din of mincha from Pesach, from matzah and chametz. Ushmartem es hamatzos. The Gemara says no. We can actually know it from the din of Mincha. We don't have to come on to Pesach. But I'll pull upon him. Here comes the Rogatchover. The Rogatchover again brings this Gemara in Menachos to prove the same point, which is like a repeat, a repetition, like a sequence of what we're saying in relation to Pesach, what we just discussed in relation to Chometz, right? The Gemara in Pesach and Afmen. But then we see the Gemara extends it and applies it also to Kodshin. And that is that we have to need the lechem aponim, and we need and prepare the preparation of all the what? Of all the meal offerings in such a mode like we prepare matzah, that it shouldn't come l'dei chimutz. Here too, we have to prepare them in such a way. Because it says so we learn the mincha from the Pesach. So therefore we put it in poishrin. And if we put it in poishrin with lukewarm water, it accelerates the chimutz. And if it accelerates the chimutz, only then are we fulfilling the ushmartem esawat, ushmartem esamatzos, to make sure that it shouldn't come l'dei chimutz, like we discussed in relation to chometz b'Pesach. We're not going to repeat. Let's go on, and we're coming closer to home. Here comes the Rogatchover. Here you go. Dvorim nifloim mamish. And this is as follows. I hope I didn't miss anything. And this is as follows. Let's go back to this Mechilta, okay? And that is the Mechilta. The lashon of the Mechilta was, let me read it to you again. Shimurim lechol b'nei Yisrael, magid shekol Yisrael tzrichim lehishtamer b'o. Now we've brought already different psukim in relation to Pesach. We said side the whole month of Pesach. It's a shomer is chodesh ha'aviv. The different psukim Rabbi Simcha quoted in relation to Pesach, in relation to ushmartem esamatzos, right? And the different, right? He detailed many psukim which we find in relation to Chag HaMatzos Tishmer. So that is referring to the baking of the matzah, or the yontif is. So there's a lot of Tishmer and a lot of ushmartems there, okay? Here we have another ushmartem, another hishomer by Pesach, and that is shimurim, leil shimurim. That's another hishomer. That's another ushmartem. That's another vishomru. In relation to, number one, to the month of Pesach, in relation to the matzah, in relation to the chometz. Here comes the Rogatchover Gaon, and he says, here, this relates to the Korban Pesach. Dvorim nifloim. And only the Rogatchover can say it, and you'll soon see why he does it. Listen to what he says. Shimurim l'chol b'nei Yisrael. What does it mean? Magid says the Mechilta. This teaches us shimurim, meaning all Yidden have to be shimurim. They have to watch. What do they have to watch? Magid shekol Yisrael tzrichim leishtamer boy. There is a mandate of Klal Yisrael upon all Yidden. Shimurim l'chol b'nei Yisrael. They have to watch out. There's a ushmartem this night. Well, others said, how can you take it at face value? We have to watch. We have to guard ourselves. Hashem guards us. So says the Rogatchover, there's something Hashem guards, but we have to do our share. Not we have to guard ourselves. We have to guard the Korban Pesach. What are we talking about? Here we go. So in addition to all the different halachas we said, I'm repeating myself many times, Shomer es chodesh ha'aviv, v'shmartem es ha'matzos, we said the Gemara in Pesach and Pei, the Pei. Let me take out a Rambam. The Rambam. A schwerer Rambam. The Rambam reads as follows. In the Rambam in Hilchas, the Rambam in Hilchas Korban Pesach says the Rambam as follows. In Perik Yud of Hilchas Korban Pesach, Halacha Yud Aleph, says the Rambam as follows. There he brings the din of Noisa, right? It says in Chumash, in the Parshas Boy, in Parshas HaChodesh we read, Parshas HaChodesh and Parshas Boy, there's a law of Noisa. Before I come to the Rambam. The din is, Kotchim, all Kotchim, right? We learn out in Parshas Emor, it says by the Parshas Torah, and this is a lav in the Torah, and counted as one of the lav in the Torah, and also recorded in the Sefer HaMitzvahs of the Rambam, and also in the Sefer HaChinuch, in Mitzvah Kuf. If I recall correctly, it's either Kuf Mem Beis or Kuf Mem Dalet. It's a lav in the Torah, and that is Loisei Siru Mimenu Ad Boker. We derive it from the Torah writes that we shouldn't leave any part of the sacrificial meat of the Korban Torah till the morning, right? And if it's left over until the morning, ba'esh tisreifu. So, and if you left it over till the morning, so there's a lav. You're over belav. Nevertheless, you don't get malchus. Why don't you get malchus? Because says the Rambam, because it's a lav anitik la'aseh, because the Torah says ba'esh tisreifu, you should consume it in fire. You should burn it. So that's a psak halacha in Rambam. we derive from the Korban Toida, and the same halacha applies by all kochim, by all sacrificial meat, both by kochim kalim and kochim. The Rambam records this halacha in Hilchas Psulei HaMukdashim, Perik Yud Ches. You'll find all the details of Hilchas Noiser there. Okay. Nevertheless, the Torah again records and tells us the lav of Noiser by the Korban Pesach. Torah does not suffice, even though the Korban Pesach is also kochim. Nevertheless, the Torah does not suffice with the lav of Noiser by all kochim, and tells us a specific lav of Noiser by Korban Pesach, which according to the Rambam is recorded as a separate lav in the Torah, that one is prohibited to leave over any part of that sacrificial, of that Paschal lamb until the morning. Shittas Rambam is, right, as a machlokes in the Mishnah. If Achilas Korban Pesach is till midnight, or Achilas Korban Pesach is till the morning, right? We know we eat our afikomen until midnight because it follows with the shittas of the Tana. According to those shittas of Rishonim, we pass like the Tana that we can only eat the Pesach until Chatzos, so therefore the matzah is also eaten until Chatzos, therefore the afikomen is eaten until Chatzos. The Rambam's Psak Halacha is that we can eat matzah kol halayla because the Korban Pesach is eaten kol halayla, as the Maggid Mishnah explains. I'll call upon him, so the Rambam says that you're over with the Noiser in the morning, but he counts it as a separate lav in the Torah and the Sefer HaMitzvahs. The same goes for the Sefer HaChinuch. In addition to the Sefer HaChinuch, where he counts the lav of kochim of not leaving over sacrificial meat, the same applies. He counts it as a separate mitzvah, as a separate lav in the Torah, and that is in the lav in Parshas Boy, in mitzvah ches, in the 8th mitzvah, he counts it as a separate mitzvah. So there are two separate lavin. Interesting, the Meches Chinuch has a lengthy discussion about the lavin of the Pesach and of the kochim, and that is, he wants to claim that definitely Pesach is also kochim, right? It's sacrificial. In the Mela, therefore, there's no question that when one eats, leaves over, he claims that when one leaves over, is over b'shnei lavin, because it's achilas kochim and it's also achilas Pesach. So when you eat the Korban Pesach, number one, you're mekayim mitzvahs achilas kochim. Number two, you're mekayim mitzvahs achilas Pesach. Now, if you leave it over, so you transgress the lav of lois paltoisir, right? The loisosir, loisasiru of the kochim, and also the loisasiru of the achilas Pesach. And he discusses it in detail for those who want to look in the Meches Chinuch in mitzvah ches in Parshas Boy. A lot of interesting information on these in Yom. Now, why is it counted as the Torah mentions a separate lav? Why is I didn't research it, and it has to be Batash's research. Why taka to the Torah? Of course, it's a separate mitzvah achila. Nevertheless, the Torah also counts as a separate mitzvah lav. That's an addition. Are there any nafkaminis la'alacha? If it is a separate lav, it may be. Also, what is the shear? We'll soon discuss the shear of the lav in relation to kochim, and also in the shear of the lav in relation to the Korban Pesach. I'll call upon him. So definitely there's a lav of Noiser by kochim. There's also a lav of Noiser by Korban Pesach. Now, when we open up a Rambam, Milchus Korban Pesach, by the lav of Noiser, says the Rambam as follows. Sorich Odom lehishtadel, a person has to endeavor, shalayashir mipsar ha-pesach ad boiker, not to leave over of the basar ha-pesach until the morning. Shenemar lo yseisiru mimenu ad boiker, and he goes on to say, the same applies to the Pesach Sheni, and he goes on to say that halacha, that if one does, he's over balav, and he doesn't get melkus, he doesn't get lashes, because it's a lav anitik lase. Asks the Rogatchover, Dafke, in a foreign place, Dafke in Hilchas Macholas Asuris, by the Rogatchover Kol HaTorah Kula is one kuda, which here we see another interesting thing, by the way, which till now I didn't highlight, and that is that you see from the Rogatchover that even though we were addressing many different halachas, we were addressing Shabbos, we were addressing Pesach, we were addressing Menachos, Kochim, we're now addressing Noisar, we were addressing Korban Pesach. Nevertheless, the Rogatchover's his take, his cook, right? Is the way he sees things. He doesn't just see them in their external way, and that is that they seem to be segregated dinim. He finds common denominators in many dinim which seem to not to have any dafka, don't identify one with another. You have Shabbos, you have Pesach, and you have Menachos, and you have Korban Pesach, and you have Chodesh Aviv, etc., etc. Nevertheless, because he finds a definition in the Vishmartem and in the Vishomer, so that makes it, that's the common denominator by all these mitzvahs, and he draws this one, this fine line between all of them, that they all have the same geder, they all have the same criteria. Shabbos, Pesach, Chodesh Aviv, etc., etc., Chometz, Matzah, all have this criteria of the gather of the Shomer, like we said till now. Now let's go to the Korban Pesach. So the Rambam, the Rogatchover Dafke in Hilchas Ma'acholas Asuris, Perik Yudalid, Halacha Dalid, surprising, go find it. Go find it, but it's in the Rogatchover there. And he brings this Rambam in Hilchas Korban Pesach, and he asks a Shaila. He says the Rambam already wrote, just embellishing a little what the Rogatchover Gaon says. Generally, the one who learns Rambam, the Rambam wrote a Sefer Avodah, he wrote Yudal Tzvorim, the Rambam. The Sefer Avodah, Hilchas Psula HaMikdashin is in Sefer Avodah. Hilchas Korban Pesach is in Sefer Korbanos. Generally, it's accepted most of the time that the Rambam doesn't repeat himself, right? And if he repeats himself, there's a need why he had to repeat himself. So definitely there's something novel. If he says, and there's definitely additional information, there's a need why he had to repeat himself. And why doesn't he repeat himself? Because he relies on what he wrote initially. When it's first introduced, when he writes the halacha for the first time, he'll tell you all the details of that halacha. And therefore, when he comes the second time, so even though this halacha is repeated, if it has the same criteria, it won't tell you all the details. It's relied on before, what he wrote before. If he writes something new in the second time he's introducing this halacha, it must be something novel to that halacha. And here comes the Rogatchover and asks a pashut, obvious question. This din, tzarich odom leishtadel shelo mibsar Pesach ad boker, the Rambam chose to write dafke in Hilchas Korban Pesach, Perik Yud. Asks the Rogatchover, the Rambam already wrote this halacha of noisar by all kodshim, right? It's a general thing. It's global. It's by every single korban. Where does it belong in Hilchas Psula HaMikdashim? It belongs in Sefer Avodah. That's where the halachas are. All the details of Neisar are there. There, for the first time, it would be expected that he should tell you that there's a lot of Neisar, and you can't leave it over. And if you do, you get lashes. And you have to burn it, and there's an essa. And if you eat it, you get malchus, etc., etc. And he should tell us this message. You should endeavor, what the Rambam geklippen zu sagen. Where did the Rambam choose to say this statement? He leaves this additional statement. Where in Hilchas Korban Pesach? In Hilchas Korban Pesach, it records the dinim that you can't leave it over at Boker, because we said there's a new law. The Torah tells us there's a special Leisesiru for Korban Pesach, so he has to tell us that there's a Leisesiru by Korban Pesach, all good. Then he says a special halacha. In that halacha where he says there's a lot of Neisar, you have to make sure, endeavor not to leave it over until the morning. You have to endeavor? Why did you say it in Hilchas Psula HaMikdashim? Why is it after halacha in Korban Pesach? If you wrote it in Hilchas Korban Pesach, it's a halacha of Korban Pesach. He says, and also the Lashon is an interesting Lashon. He says, you should endeavor. Yishtadel, interesting Lashon. Very unusual. What's going on there? The Pashtus it would mean, don't eat Neisar and make sure it doesn't come with day Neisar, right? So he's telling us a novel halacha. What's the source for this din? The Rambam doesn't just say things on his own. Everything the Rambam says has a mocker, right? And if you have no mocker, so Imrei Kumi Kem says the Talmud Yerushalmi, go find a mocker. Till today, would you believe, after almost 1,000 years of the Rambam, close to, not 1,000, but whatever, yeah, people are still writing chiburim and finding Mekaris for the Rambam, right? Even after the Magid Mishnah, the Kesef Mishnah, and the Radvaz, and the Marikurkus, and the Kiryatz, and the Mabit, and all the Gdulei Arishonim of Achronim will find Mekaris of the Rambam. The Rambam regretted and writes in the Tshuva, I regret I didn't write Mekaris. And he asks for a mocker. Someone asks the Rambam for a mocker. He regrets why he didn't write. You forget that. The Rambam forgot a mocker for what he wrote. The Rabbi takes issue with the Rambam. He doesn't write Mekaris. He doesn't have reasons. I'll call upon until today, even on the cotton, right? You learn new halachas, and you find new Mekaris. The Rogatchover Gaon, right, was just from yesterday, from 1936, it was the Stalik Me'olamenu. Yeah, so he's full. Learn Rogatchover, new Mekaris, novel Mekaris for the Rogatchover. What's the mocker for the statement? The Rambam doesn't just say extra things. Every word is written with precision. Every ois v'koitz like Torah shebiksav. The Rambam says, learn the whole Chumash, and after the Chumash, learn my Sefer, and you look at Torah Kula, right? That means we treat the Rambam mamish like learning Chumash, with every ois v'koitz is written with precision. They have a whole line and a whole statement. He chooses to write a dafka here. What's the mocker? Zog the Rogatchover, the mocker is this Mechilta. Moira Moiroi. This Mechilta. What does it say in the Mechilta? We just said the Mechilta says, Magid shekol Yisrael shrichim lehishtamer. But what are we talking about? This pasuk of Shimurim lechol b'nei Yisrael deroisam is written in conclusion to the parsha preceding it. And it's also written as an introduction to the parsha which is following it. The parsha preceding it is all about chametz and matzah and korban pesach. The parsha preceding it is all about the halachas of korban pesach. The Mela, therefore, says the Rogatchover that this message of the Mechilta is a halacha for korban pesach. It's a halachic medrash. So it's saying not just allegoric stuff, agoda, it's telling us halacha. What's the halacha? Magid shekol Yisrael shichem leishtamer, but this is a halacha for the korban pesach. Because the korban pesach is a central focal point in the night of Pesach. The whole night of Pesach is called Pesach al Shem Korban Pesach, right? We know Hilchas Pesach and Hilchas Korban Pesach. That's what Pesach is all about. It's not called Chag HaMatzah. It's Chumash. The Chumash, the known word from Rabbi Levitzchim Barditchev that Klal Yisrael calls the Torah Kedosha calls the Yom Tov Chag HaMatzah, and Yidden called the Yom Tov Chag HaPesach. Because Chag HaPesach talks about that Hashem was Pesach al Botei Yisrael, so the Yam Yisrael speaks about the gadlut, that the hafla that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was Pesach over and protected the Yidden, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu speaks about the milas of Yisrael that they bake the matzahs and eat matzah, Chag HaMatzahs. That's the known is brought also on the Gillion of your standard Mishnayos, the Vilna Varsha Mishnayos, in Masechta Pesachim, the beginning of Masechta Pesachim, you'll find it on the Gillion, on the border, on the margin of your Mishnayos. It's there. If you have a Mishnayos Yochanan Boyes, it's there. I'll call upon him from Israel Dishav. But I'll call upon him, so that the Korban Pesach has a focal point, and even if we don't have a Korban Pesach nowadays, just Derech Hagav, there's a Bavusta Maril who says that the whole night of the Suda, everything which goes on is all about the Korban Pesach, even though we don't have a Korban Pesach. But nevertheless, we know we eat Afikoim Elamaisa before Chtzos. So Stam also our Sdorim also around the Korban Pesach. But definitely, in the context of the Chumash, Korban Pesach is a Iker, right? Etc. That's what it's all about. So the whole Seder is set around the Korban Pesach. So when the Mishnah, the Mechilta tells us a halacha, Shemurim l'chol b'nei Yisrael, there's a leil, Shemurim v'HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Then there's a halacha of Klal Yisrael in relation to the Korban Pesach. Magid shekol Yisrael shichem leishtamer bo. Now, what does leishtamer bo mean? It's based on the leil Shemurim. If you recall all the, but I'm not going to repeat myself. I repeated myself too many times. We know what shomer is now, right? We have a total different outlook and understanding of what shomer is in the context of Torah Shebiksav and Torah Shemal Peh, what shomer is and where shomer is mentioned. So when it says leil Shemurim, for Klal Yisrael, it's Shemurim l'chol b'nei Yisrael. So it's telling us, mandating us, Magid, is teaching us a new halacha that every Yid has to do in the Shmirah, lehishtamer boy, has to fulfill the Shmirah. How does he fulfill the Shmirah? What's Pshat in this Mechilta? So the Rambam teaches up the Mechilta. The Rambam says the Pshat of the Mechilta is as follows. Tzorich odom lehishtadel shelo yashir mibsar haPesach ad boiker. The Mechilta is telling you, Shomer doesn't just mean when the night of Pesach arrives. Shomer, Leil Shemurim means even before the night of Pesach arrives, right? So Shomer tells us even before you're actually consuming the Korban Pesach, even before the moment of Alois HaShachar arrives, even before the time comes, you have to do in Yonim to make sure and be mishtadel, to make sure it's a Shomer, Leil Shemurim, Lehishtamer boy. You have to employ the Shomer and make sure to be mishtadel in advance that it shouldn't come lidei noisar. This is only a halacha of a Korban Pesach. Because only by Korban Pesach it says Shimurim. Only by Korban Pesach it says Shomer. It doesn't say by Kochim. The fact is, there's an Oshmartem v'asisem in Parshas Amor right after the halacha of noisar by Korban Toida by all Kochim. But there's a novel, gewaldik and moiridik Rogatchover who explains the Oshmartem, but not in this. In the same vein of a Shmartem, but in a total different take. in order to fit to Ushmarten, but it's a total different Ushmarten. But this Ushmarten, this Leil Shimurim, Tzorach Leishtamer boy, this halacha that we have to do in Yonim in advance, Leishtadel, to endeavor before. Just like we said, we have to endeavor before the Shabbos to make sure there's no Chilul Shabbos. Just like we said that we have to endeavor, we're making the matzah, to make sure not to be, to make sure not to shouldn't go to the Chimutz. Just like we said, we have to make sure to endeavor before and to be Mechal Shabbos in order that the fellow should be able to keep the Shabbos, etc. It says all the different halachas. Just like we said that we have to make the Menachas to do in such a way that it shouldn't come to the Chimutz. Here too, we have to eat the Korban Pesach by from Kazeh, that it shouldn't come to the Noisa. So that's the meaning of this Mechilta. That's the meaning of this Rambam. That's the reason why the Rambam Dafka chose to write it in Hilchos Korban Pesach. And the mocker for this Rambam is Dafka this Mechilta. Now, Verte Shaila, we're not finished. Why Take is there a halacha? What is this telling us? You have to make sure it shouldn't come to the Noisa. Why is there a need to say it? What's going on here? Right? What's going to happen? Why is there a special halacha for Shmira? Why taka? Fine. It's telling us you have to taka, make sure in advance to eat it in such a way that it shouldn't be nicer in the morning, right? Shalayasha, make sure to eat it in such a way, Shalayasha, that nothing's left over. Okay, so I'm going to make this very quick because the 2 hours are almost up and people are getting tired. And I'm going to say it very quick. One pshat, I'll say it, Mamish B'Kitzur Nimrus, I'm sorry, and the Rogatchover will have to be meichel me because I have to take the tzibur into consideration, and therefore I'm going to say B'Kitzur Nimrus to Biurim, Nifloim of the Rogatchover Gaon. When it comes to all kotchim, there's not a problem because there's no special halachis about kotchim. In other words, we slaughter the korban, so either the koyanim eat, the bailim eat, the men eat, the women eat, whatever, the different halachas, whoever is meant to eat. So, in other words, so the kohen is meant to eat it. If the kohen can't finish it at the right time, so other kohenim chip in, join in. Well, there's the bailim, right? So the bailim eat, the mitzvahs on the bailim to eat it. But other Yidden, if it's a korban shlomim, other Yidden are able to eat and fulfill this mitzvah, that Torah, etc., etc. There's a mitzvah of achilas kotchim. There are special regulations in the mitzvah of achilas korban Pesach. And here we come to a halacha. This is one pshat of the Rogatchover. And that is this halacha of shalolim nuyov. The Torah says that who can partake? When are you mekayim mitzvahs achilas korban Pesach? Only ein a Pesach nechal ela lim nuyov. Only if you're registered on the korban Pesach. You have to register on the korban Pesach before the slaughtering, and only after if you're registered on the korban Pesach before the slaughtering, and then it's slaughtered, and that is slaughtered on behalf of all those who are registered. So then the din is, if they all partake of the korban Pesach by consuming a kezayis, so each one fulfills the mitzvah of achilas korban Pesach, so they will mekayim the mitzvah of achilas kotchim, they mekayim the mitzvah of achilas korban Pesach, and they don't have to bring a Pesach sheni, etc., etc. Now, what happens if it's a big shepsela and then you have a small group, and therefore the halachas you have to make sure in advance to make sure that it's such a group that they're able to consume it. What happens if it happens to be such a group, right, that you had manuyim, you had those who were manuy on it, and it comes closer, it's you start to look at the clock, right, it's almost midnight, hey, and here what's going on, all of a sudden it's coming close to daybreak, and your friend is coming to dinner, and how much can you eat? Everybody's really stuffing themselves. You have to eat the korban Pesach ala soiva. You can't eat achila gasa, right? So everybody's eating, and therefore they're satiated, and they're eating it, and they're mekayim the mitzvah, and now they have to make sure it shouldn't come lidei noisar, right? Now, how do we bavor on that? You want to invite your neighbors, or invite someone else in the house who wasn't registered? No way. You can't. So you're limited to those who are registered. The Mela says the Rogatchover Gaon Vibald is a halacha. That is, you can't eat the korban Pesach shalolim nuyov, which doesn't apply to other achilas kotchim. This is a special halacha by korban Pesach. So you're limited to the eaters who is able to consume this korban. So you see, it's coming close to the point where it's going to come like day noisa. By other kotchim, it's not a problem. You have other people join in to consume it. But when it comes to this korban, you have a problem. Because you cannot consume this korban if you're not a money on it. Now, what's interesting is as follows. I'm sorry, before I conclude. This is a machlokes Rishonim. The Ravid holds. The Ravid in Hilchos Korban Pesach and Perek Tes says that is a lav. There's a transgression. If you eat it, if you're not monui, you're over belav. But there's a Rash Mishantz. The Rogatchover brings a Rash Mishantz in Parshas Sav. on the Teres Kenim who says that if you're not a monu, you're not over belav. You can still consume the korban pesach, but you're not mekayim the mitzvah. So according to the Rash Mishans, it's not a problem. But the Ravid holds that if you eat it, the korban pesach, you partake of the korban pesach, and you weren't registered, you're over belav. And it seems the Rogatchover Gaon also learns that way in Das HaRambam. And if that's the case, from many places, and if that's the case, so there's no way you're stuck in the morning. So that's why there's a special halacha of Leil Shimurim. You have to be mishtadel to make sure to eat it in such a way that it shouldn't, nothing of it should be left over till the morning. In other words, when you shech the korban and you start eating it from midnight, from Belayla at night, eat it in such a mode to make sure that that none of it should be left over, because if you're going to leave it to the last minute, you're going to be stuck. No one else can join in. The question is, children. So interesting. Tosfos and that's recorded la halacha in the Rav Shulchan Aruch and Hilchas Shabbos Shin Mem Gimel. Says Tosfos a gewaltige Zach that even though there's an isur to eat from the korban pesach shaloi limnuyav if you're not registered, but if you're giving it to kids, to children, right, kids under bar mitzvah v'shteitzach, and you're doing it, you're feeding them, which they weren't counted on the korban pesach, they weren't registered, and you're giving it to them to be mechanech them to eat korban pesach. So mitzat chinuch mitzvah, we don't have to worry about the lav of the isur of not eating it shalom nuyav. It's a Tosfos in Pesach and Daf Peches Amadalef and Mefurish Tosfos recorded la halacha in the Rav Shulchan Aruch and Hilchas Shabbos and Shin Mem Gimel and the dinim of chinuch of ketanim that we can be over the isur to be mechanechim in the mitzvah. Interesting novel halacha. There's certain other Rishonim hold that for children there's no isur, but Tosfos says there's an isur. Nevertheless, to be mechanech and b'mitzvahs, you're allowed over the isur. So according to the Rogatchover, what's the problem? You take kids. If there's something left over, comes towards Alois HaShachar, you see you're stuck, you get some kids to eat it. Well, I believe the Rogatchover considered that, and he says he means just that. Prepare the children to be up to make sure to eat it, because who's up before Alois HaShachar? You get it? The kids are tired of sleep. They're sleeping long ago, right? They've fallen asleep. And if they're not asleep, you can't get them to join in. But enechanami, if we'll follow this halacha, so if you have to do a special halacha to make sure it shouldn't come l'day noisar, so it's not a problem. You'll make sure to have the kids and the family join in, both kids, boys or girls, and according to the halacha, you can give them, it shouldn't come l'day noisar. Because if you can give it to them to be mechanech them to be mekayim the mitzvah v'achilas Pesach, you surely can give it to them. It shouldn't come l'day noisa. So that's incorporated in when the Rambam says yishtadel shelo yashin mibsara Pesach. Make sure whoever has to consume or is able to consume, eat it in such a way, set it yourself up in such a way that it shouldn't come l'day noisa. That's what's halacha daf there. I want to say one more pirush of the Rogatchover. I'm finishing, and that is the pirush which he says in Hilchos Machalos Asuris, which is mamish navel. The Minchas Chinuch and Mitzvah Ches brings to our attention. He says, he brings a sefer Mutzal Me'esh in Simin Nun Gimel from Rabbi Yankiv Alfandri, who raises a point. He says, the Rambam doesn't tell us a shiur. He says, don't leave over Kachim, don't leave over Korban Pesach, but he doesn't mention an amount. Doesn't say Kazayas. So he's under the impression, he's not sure, is the Rambam Shita, that maybe the lav of Loisei Sirum and Menuad Baker may even be Bepachas Mikazais. The Rambam doesn't mention Kazais. The Minchas Chinuch claims in Mitzvah Ches that even though the Rambam doesn't mention Kazais, it's only Bekazais. The lav of Loisei Siru by all Kochim. The lav of Balta Siru, Loisei Siru by Korban Pesach is only if you leave over a Kazais of the meat. Because all the shiurim are Bekazais, even though it doesn't say Achila here, nevertheless, the reason the Rambam doesn't mention it is because the halach is, he'll mention Kazais only where there's lashes, because lashes you only get Bekazais. But because over here, by Loisei Siru, there's no lashes anyway, there's no malchus, it's a lav anitik la'aseh, right? So it says the Rambam, there's no malchus, or according to other reasons, others say the reason is because there's lav shem be'maisa, is al kol ponim, therefore, there's no lashes, it makes no difference if it's a kazais or less than a kazais. That's why he doesn't mention the shir. That's the take of the Minchas Chinuch. So he seems to say that there is a shir of kazais, of noiser, both by all kochim and Korban Pesach. Well, here comes the Rogatchover Gaon. No one like him. He knows all the Rashis in Shas, like he knows everything. And he brings to our attention a Mefurish Rashi in Shas, which I'm surprised these Achronim didn't bring. Rashi in Masechta Chulin Daf Kuf Chaf Hey Omadala. For those who learned Daf Yomi, you just finished Seder Kochim, so you surely remember the Rashi. Rashi says, Ein noiser poches mikazais. There's no such thing. Rashi dibra maskul ihachi Rashi. In the Chum kuf chafei medalef. Remember that Rashi. Now you'll remember it. Ihachi dibra maskul ihachi. Rashi says there's no such thing as noiser poches mikazais. Noiser is only mikazais. So it's a mefurish Rashi. But here comes the Rogatchover and claims. It's a big claim. He says the Rashi applies only to all kochim, to all sacrificial meat, not to Korban Pesach, not to Korban Pesach. And he says the reason is because by all kochim it's only kazayis, because anything less than a kazayis is not shaykh noiser. It should be called noiser. He bases it on. It's not a joke. He doesn't make it up. It's not a svara. He brings Tosfos in. So Tosfos, I'm not going to talk to details. I'm just going to let you bring the Maramakaimi so you look it up yourself. It's a Tosfos in Masechta Shavuos Daf Chav Zayin Amud Beis, and it's a Tosfos in Masechta that's in relation to a neder. And Tosfos says that when one eats a loaf of bread, he doesn't incorporate it in his vow. It's not the crumbs, because even an adult, when he eats a loaf of bread, there will be crumbs. So the crumbs weren't incorporated in his vow. So it's obvious that crumbs are left over. It's not even incorporated in what he was. He never considered the crumbs which fall off while he eats. Tosfos says the same thing about the leftovers of the oil in the loig shemen. You have to have a specific amount of shemen. The Gemara says in Masechta Menachos Daf Chav Zayin, the Mishnah says, and therefore if it's less than the measure of loig shemen, it's not good. So even if it's less, it's going to affect it. Nevertheless, the Gemara says in Masechta Menachos Daf Chav Gimel that the Gemara describes a case where there's something left over of the oil in the loig, in this measure. So Tosfos says, yeah, there's a big difference of how much is left over. There's nothing left over, but then there's amount, you can't squeeze it out. You can't have to smear it off. In other words, take a bottle of whiskey, right? So you pour out as much as you can, but there's always some drop left, right? You can appreciate it. I try to squeeze the bottle. That we should get as much as you can out of it, right? But there's always something left. So Tosfos says, even in relation to kochim, and also there's a Tosfos in Zvachim, so in relation to the loik shemen, that we say we don't consider that as leftover, because it's not called leftover. It's just because Leinit Torah L'Malachi Asher says Tosfos, right? It's not given to the Malachim, so it's only normal that it should be left over. Well, there is a Tosfos in Masechta Zvachim Daf Pei Vav says the same thing in relation to bones of the korban which is thrown away. So the meat left over on the bones are also not regarded as leftover. So the Rogatchover builds up this theory, the Shita that explained the Rashi, that there's no noiser anything less than a kazayis. Because a kazayis, it's inevitable, it's left over. It can't even be regarded as leftover. He didn't leave it over. That's normal. If you leave over a kazayis, that's not normal. But anything less than a kazayis, if it's left over from a meal, because it's natural that those things should fall off or fall away, that's not regarded as noiser. So it's not even in a gather of chatzi shir. The Minchas Chinuch wants to say less than a kazayis by kochim is chatzi shir or Torah. According to the Rogatchover, there's no noiser at all, anything less than a kazayis, based on that Rashi. But he's mechadish by Korban Pesach. It's a big chiddush. Korban Pesach, based on many Rashis, is a halacha of tefillah. That is it's secondary. It's tofel, right? So it says that women, there's a shayla, there's a machlokes in Gemara, the women actually participate as initial participants of the korban, or they're only tefillin, they're only subordinate to the korban. Valderazeh in relation to ketanim, etc., etc. So there's the concept by Korban Pesach of tofel Korban Pesach. So even if you're a monui, meaning even if you didn't eat a kezayis, but if you eat a kol shu, even a crumb, even a bit of that Korban Pesach, it may not be regarded as achilas kochim. It may not be regarded as achilas Korban Pesach. You're not mekayim the mitzvah, because with the mekayim the mitzvah of achilas Korban Pesach, you need a kezayis, but it's still regarded as an achila in relation to Korban Pesach. Because by Korban Pesach there's a din of tefillin. Those who, so to speak, are linked to the main primary eaters and consumers of the korban. All right. So because there's a din of tefillin, based on the Rashis, he learns that the tefillin consume even crumbs, leftovers, shtiklach, less than the kazayis of the Korban Pesach. So that says another reason why the Rambam says that you have to be mishtadel, not to leave over of the Korban Pesach at Boiker. It's only halacha, but the Korban Pesach has been discussed, and that's what the Mechilta is saying. For another reason, because by Korban Pesach there's a new halacha that you're not allowed to leave over even less than a kazais. By all kochim, you're allowed to leave anything left over less than a kazais is not noisa. But by Korban Pesach, vibald, it's choshev in relation to the tefillin, so therefore in relation to noisa, it's a problem. And vibald, it's a problem in relation to noisa, so we have to worry even about crumbs, even something less than a kazais. So therefore, the Rambam has to tell you this halacha, a special halacha only in relation to the Korban Pesach. With this, we conclude the general discussion. There's a lot more in the Rogatchover. I wouldn't say it's a tip of the iceberg, but it's a fair amount of what the Rogatchover discussed. The ikar is that with that hopefully you appreciated the share. I thank you very much for joining in. We're not going to schlep it out for 2 hours. We're finishing here. And again, the schus from the Yasher Koyach for all of you participating. In Emirat Hashem, hopefully, thanks to Menshi, we'll organize another share for us whenever the correct suitable time. And let's all together be mechaven that our Torah and the schus from our Torah, like the Gemara says in the Hecht, that Torah is magino umatzlo, that this should be, in addition to learning Torah l'shma and connecting to the Torah of the true Sarah Torah and learning Torah Hashem, connecting to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, etc. So it should be, in addition to all of that, it's magino umatzlo, it protects and it guards the Am Yisrael, etc., not just in the night of Pesach, but now and every night that we need, especially in these trying times, HaKadosh Baruch Hu should be making a matzil upon us. It should be a leil shemurim every single moment of our lives, that all those who need a refuah shleimo kreva should have a refuah shleimo kreva. Al tiyeh b'ches hediyet kala be'einecha. I will conclude with the story of the Rogatchover. It's a known story recorded by Rav Zevin and many others, that there was this an old woman who came into the Rogatchover and asked the Rogatchover to please give her a bracha because she was ill or whatever, and she begged him. And the Rogatchover said and refrained from giving brachas. He says, I'm not a Rebbe and I don't give brachas. And there was another great sage, a scholar, a sage, a Rebbe or whatever, a holy man in the presence of the Rogatchover. And, he's also like trying to push the Rogatchover and influence the Rogatchover and impress upon him to give the bracha to this woman. And this great sage tells the Rogatchover Gaon, Ma'adoch, if the Gemara says, Al tiyeh birchas hediyet kala be'einecha, that you shouldn't take a bracha of a plain person, a simpleton lightly, so halachas kama v'chama, no question that the great sage, this great Gaon, the Rogatchover Gaon's bracha, it'll surely have a gewaldige impression and surely influence and it shall be miskayim. So please give this woman a bracha. Said the Rogatchover Gaon to this Rav, why do I have to give a bracha with a kal v'chomer? You give a bracha without a kal v'chomer. So I'm giving a bracha, you get it? I give a bracha without a kal v'chomer. I'm a plain hediyet. Und der Eibische soll geben, als alle Jiden sollen geholfen werden. Und der Eibische soll uns hieten. Variches Yame, Vishanim Teves. Und alle, die sind nicht gesund, soll haben wir vorschleime. And the schus of the limud Torah and the tefillah. And also definitely every one of us will give tzedakah. So we have Torah, Tefillah, Tzedakah, is Marvin, Nesreya, Agzera, a good Nacht, a kosher and freilich and Pesach, Yasher Koyach, everybody, l'chaim.
Koyach. A good Nacht.
A good Nacht, a good year.